So in this segment, we're going to be talking about Tories desperate for us to move on from partygate. So what we can do is there's two different clips here. We've got this Tory MP here, Simon Hart, and we have another Tory MP, Mr. Kissy Kissy. We'll cut to Mr. Kissy Kissy in a moment, but we'll watch this clip first and we'll kind of go through this one.
Karaoke at Downing Street at the same time that people were being told they couldn't sing in church. Does that sit comfortably with you?
No, of course it doesn't. It doesn't sit comfortably with anybody.
And what I want you guys to notice how angry he is initially, and then once he's asked about the resignation about halfway through, his tone kind of changes. So let's go through this.
And the PM has on numerous occasions come out and said how bitterly he regrets the circumstances which led up to the moment. Of course it doesn't. Barely a day goes by when I don't look back and wish I did something different. When I look back over 2 years and look at every decision I made, every judgment I made, I expect you're the same. Look,
I wonder if the next big Tory party conference they play that Cher song, "If I Could Turn Back Time." Now that would be ironic.
Back and think, actually, could we have done that differently? Could we have done that?
Could we have done that differently? No. Should we have done it differently? Yes. Should this have ever happened? No. You stop people from seeing their loved ones in their final moments. Like, what more can I say about that apart from the fact that what you guys did was absolutely abhorrent. What you guys did was absolutely abhorrent, considering how brutal the lockdowns were and how late on you did it. People died because of your indecisions, and then you guys were having jollies. Not him specifically, Simon Hart, but we know civil servants were apparently. We know that junior ministers and other people were allegedly there. We've heard many stories about who was and was not there. So I don't want to hear it, this man's anger and frustration, because realistically he should be calling for Johnson to go.
That better, did we?
No, Minister. These people were responsible for policy, and they were partying and being told that you can't sing in church, and they were all taking turns on the karaoke machine.
And that's kind of the point, which is not just about church. I think she's talking about something specific here, but the simple fact is, you told people you couldn't do something. You couldn't meet people indoors and whatever else, right? You couldn't see family members, which we needed to do at the time. That makes sense because of how bad things were, right, and how badly these guys decimated the NHS, etc. But the simple fact is they should not have been meeting each other outside of work and all this karaoke and all this other nonsense, drinking and other things, And the fact is some of these people got £50 fines when other people were fined £10,000, £800. It's just ludicrous.
Yeah, you asked me if that sat comfortably with him, and I gave you a very frank answer. Of course it doesn't.
So it doesn't sit comfortably with him. He's very angry about this, okay? And Boris Johnson being the top of the tree here, the person who's in charge, surely should have known about this stuff, but didn't for some reason. They claim he was lied to by his own staff, okay? Was anyone fired for the lies? Was anyone punished for lying to their boss? Didn't hear much, did you? Let me know if you did.
Of course it doesn't. Why should it?
Well, indeed.
So very angry.
The Prime Minister resign if he's fined?
So let's notice the tone change.
Well, I take a very clear view on this, which is based on, well, I'll tell you what, I have 65,000 constituents in West Wales, where I represent, and they are not shy in coming forward and expressing a view about this and a number of other subjects. And throughout all of this saga of the Downing Street parties, they have said one thing very clearly, and in a vast majority, is they want contrition and they want an apology, but they don't want a resignation.
So they said to you specifically they want an apology, but they don't want a resignation. That's what they've specifically told you in those words. I don't think they have, big man.
I actually think at the moment, the idea, given what we started this conversation talking about, the idea that it might be appropriate to have a sort of 6-week self-indulgent leadership contest in the middle of this, frankly, I don't think that's very...
I think they're talking about the war in Ukraine, which you could, it's not... Yes, we are playing a part in helping Ukraine, but changing Prime Minister now wouldn't make a ton of difference on policy on the ground.
Sensible. Either, as I've said before, we all make judgments which we have time to reflect on and wish we'd made differently.
Yeah, things we wish we did differently. Not this. This was a massive blunder in leadership. Not this. You can't say, we told people not to do one thing, but then we did it, it's a mistake, hypocrisy and, stuff. You told people they couldn't see their loved ones, in their final moments, and then you guys were having a jolly, having a party. Like, you can't, don't say this is a minor mistake, honestly.
I think for me, personally speaking, I think the world has moved on at considerable distance.
It really hasn't, especially if people are demanding an apology. If people are still demanding you ask for an apology from Boris Johnson, then clearly they haven't moved on.
I trust the views of the people who elected me in saying that, look, put this problem right, make sure you apologise. You know, you acted inappropriately at the time, but the idea that every politician, or indeed every journalist for that matter, who makes a misjudgment along the way should automatically be sacked.
See, you know why he said journalist? Because Kay Burley was, I think, caught breaking the lockdown rules. That's why he threw that in there. But the simple fact is the journalists didn't make the rules. It's you guys, you made the rules. If you're found breaking the rules, you should have to resign.
It's not something I subscribe to.
Okay, so this is the only clip that she posted. So I'm guessing, you know, he took a subtle jab at her, you know, because she was apparently caught breaking the lockdown rules. I think she was suspended from Sky News for a bit, which obviously Boris Johnson wasn't suspended from being Prime Minister. That would be funny. But how many people in the civil service and the Tory party were punished over their alleged breaking of the lockdown rules? I don't think they were. Now we jump to Mr. Kissy Kissy, and they don't actually say the name of the Sky host. At least I couldn't see if her name was put anywhere, but she does a very good job of holding him accountable. So let's give this a watch.
Today, because you will be well aware that one of our top stories is about those fixed penalty notices handed out to government staff members for parties at Downing Street and Whitehall. This is a clear sign that the law was broken.
Well, we haven't seen that yet from the Met Police, have we? We haven't heard the
they've handed out fines, so
news of whether those have been issued. We've just been told that they will be.
They have been. To be fair, this on the 29th of March.
The Prime Minister
fixed penalty notices
apologised.
if COVID laws were broken.
Well, the PM has apologised. And, you know, the question that we've got that faces us today is, do we want to change Prime Minister in the middle of a war?
I haven't even got...
We're not at war, you idiot. We are not at war right now. You know, Ukraine is at war right now, and, you know, leaders have been changed during wartime anyways. Neville Chamberlain to Winston Churchill. And even if we did change Prime Minister now, there would not be a change in policy, most likely. The only ones who might change it is Sunak, because I don't think he believes that, you know, Ukraine will actually win the war, I think he doesn't believe that Putin will be ousted. But Liz Truss has been trying to rally support around anti-Russian sentiment, even though she hasn't done much in terms of sanctions. But then again, that's more for the Home Office. But I don't think there'd be a big change in policy anyways if we did change between the main frontrunners for Prime Minister. So it's just a joke, to be honest.
The Prime Minister is not only providing
hang on a second,
leadership.
I haven't even got onto that question yet. I know we're getting over...
And he's rehearsed it. That's what they've been told. These are the answers they've been told given by GCHQ, the Conservative Party headquarters.
It's coming, though. I know that it's coming.
No, I know, but let's not prejudge things. Let's not prejudge things. I just want to go through this because, you know, we are going over old ground. But what I'm talking about is fixed penalty notices are issued when a law has been broken. But what we're struggling with today is that Number 10 and nobody from the Conservatives will actually come out and hold your hands up and go, the Met Police have found us guilty of breaking the law. Why not?
Well, I haven't seen that because I haven't seen that detail yet, and the Met haven't published that.
They said that they'll be issuing 20 fixed penalty notices.
So yeah, I think they've issued around that, but Boris Johnson or none of the top brass have been fined by the looks of it.
But they haven't given any detail, and I'm certainly not privy to it. But the Number 10 team have said that if the Prime Minister is issued with such a notice, then they will make that public.
Okay.
Does anyone believe that? Does anyone believe they'll make it public?
Then he will have been found to break the law, is that
approach.
correct?
Well, the thing is that, you know, this issue has been gone over a huge amount. I understand.
He doesn't answer the question. She said, if Boris Johnson is fined by the Met Police, does that mean he has broken the law? He's completely dodged the question and talked about how long the saga's gone on for, blah, blah, blah.
Of course, I understand the concern, the frustration, and the...
You don't understand the concern or the frustration, mate, because you were there breaking the rules.
Emotions that people have when faced with this sort of allegation.
Well, let's give them straight answers then. If a fixed penalty notice is issued, that is an indication of breaking the law. So if the Prime Minister gets one of those, he has broken the law. Is that correct?
Well, it depends what happens. But the real...
No, it doesn't. If you're handed a fixed penalty notice, that means you have broken the COVID rules. That's what that means. Like, why are you avoiding this?
Question, okay, is where do we go from here?
So now he's changed it. Now he's gone from, well, you know, whether that is the case or not, what happens now then? You know, do we get the Prime Minister to resign? That's the angle he's going at it from. Because he's kind of preempted the questions because it's not that hard to do. But the simple fact is, you know, should he resign? Most likely, yes.
And the Prime Minister has apologised. He understands, and I certainly understand.
Let's put it this way, right? Matt Hancock was caught breaking the rules, right? He eventually resigned over it because of all the public scrutiny. So why shouldn't Boris Johnson have to resign then?
The anger and frustration that people feel about this issue. But the real question that we've got, and this is why I addressed this, you know, my first response to your question, the real question we've got is, what do we do about it now, okay? And what we do about it now is we need to move forward. Thankfully...
Let's move forward. Let's forget our alleged rule breaking. Let's forget anyone who, you know, anyone who suffered because of the rules that we made and broke, and forget apologising. We're just going to carry on as normal.
We're one of the first countries in the world out of COVID restrictions, in large part down to the speed of the vaccination rollout, which we delivered here faster than any other major country.
I get that, but the question...
That's not true, actually, because Israel had the fastest vaccine rollout, so faster than any other major country. I guess maybe you don't think Israel's a major country then.
And down to the PM's judgments.
Yeah,
and then we've got to move
what happens
forward.
now? I mean, it's almost like you're glossing over it in terms of if the Prime Minister is found to have broken the law, and, you know, those people at Downing Street parties and Whitehall parties have been found to break the law, otherwise they wouldn't be issued with fixed penalty notices. If laws have been broken, and if the Prime Minister misled Parliament by saying, and I quote here back in December to Sir Keir Starmer, all guidance was completely followed in number 10. He repeatedly assured the House there were no parties. So if he misled Parliament, lying in the words of Labour, are we just to pretend there are no consequences to those actions?
Now that's a great line of questioning. You know, like, are we glossing over this? She's doing a very good job of holding him accountable over this, and you have to give her a lot of credit. It's sad they don't mention her name here, but, you know, a lot of credit from me anyways.
And we just move on?
The Prime Minister's apologised, but
and if it was Labour, do you think it would be the same? Do you think the Tories would be like, oh, he's apologised, let's move on? Do you think that'd be the case? No. We're calling for his resignation, and rightfully so. When you're the ones who create the rules, you cannot go around breaking them.
It is really important, you know, when you're, as an MP, as a representative of my constituents, you know, once the Prime Minister has apologised, the idea that that he should have to resign following something like this, that question has to take into account everything that's going on. Because this isn't the only subject. It is an important subject. Of course it is. And we've just been talking about another important subject. And then there's some huge subjects facing the country, like the war. And then
again, big man, we are not at war. I think you struggle to understand this. If they change Prime Minister, it will not make the biggest difference to British foreign policy right now, unless you bring in someone completely rogue from the Tory party. That's it. Like, Sunak will probably follow the same policies, so will Liz Truss. Why? Collective responsibility exists. If cabinet members are not happy with the way the government is running, they have to resign because they are all responsible. Bro, like, honestly, this guy.
The economic situation as well.
I do get that,
and
but that will really...
The economic situation is being dealt with by the Chancellor.
That will really upset people watching because, yes, of course, there are other things going on, but to those people...
Let's not forget, during one of Britain's biggest wars, you know, World War II, maybe you can argue it's the biggest one, Neville Chamberlain resigned. I think he resigned during the war or just before the war, I can't remember which one, but he resigned and Winston Churchill took the premiership. Yes, you can argue, I don't think there was an official Tory leadership race or whatever at the time, you know, 6 weeks is a long time, but you can do that over the summer when Parliament's in recess anyways. Boris Johnson can say, look, I'm going to resign at the start of the summer so that during the recess, we can do the Tory leadership election. He doesn't necessarily have to resign now, but I think he does have to resign. That's the point.
We saw at that memorial in central London today, at the memorial wall opposite where you're standing now. You can see it from the House of Parliament. To those people, it really does matter. And, you know, in their eyes, if the Prime Minister broke the law and lied, he should face consequences. An apology doesn't cut it. You can't just confuse it with the war in Ukraine, the Brexit issue. You can't confuse it with all of that.
I'm not confusing anything. I'm being really clear, which is that...
You're not being really clear. You're being really tricksy by saying, oh, there's a war and all this stuff, when we are not involved in it. Not really anyway. It's not like Ukraine is.
The question of who should be Prime Minister has to take everything into account. And he has apologised for this. He's made changes in the Number 10 operation. But you've got to ask the question, do we want to change Prime Minister now? No.
What are you basing this on? In the polls, the Conservatives are struggling. They are well behind Labour. So, you know, should we change Prime Minister now? No. Who should decide that then? Because we've got a general election coming up in 2 years, but clearly the Prime Minister is not very popular. The Conservative Party is not very popular. Should we change Prime Minister now? Why don't you ask people?
Who do we want to be leading the country when Boris Johnson is not only providing leadership to this country, frankly, he's providing leadership with colleagues and friends and allies around the world.
He's hardly doing that, though, is he? When we're struggling to sanction Russian people in our own goddamn country. We're barely, you know, the sanctions have been very slow in the UK. So to argue Boris Johnson's offering leadership, yes, he's going around, he spoke to Zelensky recently, yeah, great for PR, great for the photos, but in terms of, you know, helping Ukrainians out, how many refugees have we taken? Not many. We are helping them when it comes to direct aid, when it comes to actual weapons, which is great. We are trying to get rid of using Russian oil and gas, which we don't use a lot of anyway, so it won't be that hard for us to do compared to other European countries. However, you know, the arguments he makes there are just ridiculous.
In tackling the threat of Vladimir Putin, which is a threat to us all. It's not just a threat to Ukraine, but it's a threat that undermines the safe, liberal world order that we've been living in.
Vladimir Putin is not going to invade the UK. You could argue Vladimir Putin has actually impacted the safe, liberal order we have now with massive campaigns of misinformation during the American elections, during the Brexit referendum. You could argue that, sure. But you guys did nothing to deal with it, so how are you going to argue that?
And so there are huge questions about how we keep ourselves safe in the years ahead, you know, and problems that we thought, frankly, I thought had gone away. I didn't think we'd have war in Europe in my lifetime. I thought that...
I mean, wasn't there Kosovo? Are you saying Kosovo and Serbia aren't in Europe?
It was a 20th century thing, not a 21st century.
Well, I suppose it was in the last century. Maybe you get past there.
Thing. And we have to address these questions as well. So
that's fine. Do you know who can resolve those? The next Prime Minister, because those are questions in the future.
I think I think given that the Prime Minister has apologised, it is important to look forward.
So why didn't you just apologise then? Why did you resign? Why did you resign? Why did you not just apologise and resign then? Mr. Kissy Kissy. His one was particularly egregious because they caught him on video, to be honest, but apparently there are pictures of Boris Johnson breaking the lockdown rules, which apparently the Met Police have, so we'll never see them again.
OK, Matt Hancock, former Health Secretary, thank you for speaking to us here today on Sky News, reacting to the news that the Metropolitan Police are issuing up to 20 fixed penalty notices for parties held at Downing Street and Whitehall.
So yeah, credit to her. They don't put her name out, which is annoying, but she's done a very good job. Kay Burley also did a good job in her kind of interview with Simon Hart, who was very angry but doesn't want Boris Johnson to resign. She wants to say, oh, I'm sorry, oh, I'm sorry. That's all he wanted to hear. And we know that the fixed penalty notices have happened since then. They've issued around 20, I think. Met Police has issued the fines. They might fine Boris Johnson and not interview him. It just depends on how much the Met Police want to push this issue, considering they both rely on each other to hold on to power, you know, the people in the Met Police and the Tory government. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. This video is a bit of a long one. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.